From Gore the God Butcher basically being the best part of Love and Thunder to appearances that were unworthy of Ronan the Accuser, let's look at some amazing MCU villains that were killed off too soon. Gore the God Butcher. After Love and Thunder came out, the consensus was that Gore stole the show, or Christian Bale did. The character was introduced as this tragic figure who's grieving over the death of his daughter. But here's the twist. This is just his villain's origin story, and his name might already suggest he's on a mission to wipe out all the gods in the entire universe, and he's dead set on it. This puts him on a collision course with Thor the God of Thunder, who's trying to stop him. They end up battling it out as Thor tries to prevent Gore from reaching eternity, where he can make a wish. Thor and Jane end up succeeding in making him change his wish, but he still ends up dying, because to give up his evil plan, he has to let go of his Necro Sword, which he's been cursed by. The poor guy died in his resurrected daughter's arms, and we all cried while it happened. And let me tell you why. Christian Bale nailed the character. Gore was probably one of the best villains in the MCU. His tragic backstory and his deep grief over losing his daughter made him a complex and multi-dimensional character. Bale's portrayal brought this depth to the character and made him incredibly compelling. The sad part is that he just didn't get enough screen time. It would have been awesome if they had focused more on his character to amp up the impact and quality of the film, and some of his scenes even ended up getting deleted from the final cut of the film. He might have died in this one, but there are a lot of ways his character can be brought back to the MCU. Gore can come back through cosmic or mystical means that his daughter could potentially use, or there could be an alternate timeline or reality where he's still alive. This brings me to the next villain who also deserves to be brought back from the dead, the Red Skull. You know who's a real piece of work? The Red Skull. He's one of Marvel's most infamous villains, a leader of Hydra who supported the Nazis during World War II. But get this, in Avengers Infinity War, he pops up again as some kind of spirit guide on this planet called Vormir, guarding the Soul Stone. That was his last cameo in the MCU though, so we won't be seeing him again anytime soon. The Red Skull was always a thorn in Captain America's side, a classic enemy of his. So it would have been tough to fit him into movies like Age of Ultron, but imagine if he somehow came back to guide the events of the Civil War from the stars. That would have been a cool twist. Hydra has needed some new leadership in the MCU, and the Red Skull could have been just the villain to shake things up. After all, he's one of the OG fan favorites. He's not your average villain, but a symbol of evil and tyranny, and his actions during a dark period in history make him all the more despicable. And then we have his unexpected return. Seeing him in Infinity War grew the fans' interest and added a new dimension to his character and left them thinking about his future appearances in the MCU. Like the Red Skull, this next villain should have been in multiple films due to his sheer presence as one. Eric Killmonger. The Marvel Studios subreddit has a lot of fans talking about Eric Killmonger as one of the villains that deserved multiple appearances. One user was all like, why did they have to kill off that character? They could have kept him around as a villain for multiple movies. So they believed that Killmonger could have just been the Wakandans' version of Magneto or Loki. You know, a recurring bad guy that's a thorn in their side. And let's face it, it wouldn't have hurt to see Michael B. Jordan reprise his role more than once. He killed that role. Not only did he portray the entire character arc unbelievably well, but he was also so charismatic the entire time. And that's exactly what this villain had to be like. That's why fans found it hard to understand how he could have been defeated in just one movie. But hey, I get it. Killmonger's story in the 2018 movie was pretty intense and wrapped up nicely. And yeah, I know What If isn't technically part of the main Marvel Cinematic Universe, but he did make a comeback in that Disney Plus series. It's cool to see alternate storylines and all, but it's still a bummer that we won't see more of him in the main movie. movies. If only they could have brought him back somehow, using the insane Wakandan tech for the latest sequel. He would have made a great Black Panther, and it wasn't even a long shot. But let's talk about a villain that could potentially return to the MCU, Dormammu. This guy was a seriously powerful villain, but he didn't stick around for long. He made his debut in Doctor Strange as the dark and malevolent ruler of the Dark Dimension, and boy was he menacing. But before we knew it, he was defeated by Doctor Strange using a clever time loop strategy, and poof, he was gone. Dormammu's appearance was epic, and fans were left wanting more. We only got a glimpse of his immense power, and his role as a formidable adversary to the Sorcerer Supreme. However, there may be hope for his return, since the Dark Force exists outside of time and space. He could potentially find a way to escape his time loop prison and seek revenge against Doctor Strange and the rest of the heroes. Additionally, with the multiverse becoming a central focus in the upcoming MCU films, his ability to manipulate dimensions and realities could make him a formidable antagonist once again. We all want to see more Dormammu, because he represents a unique and powerful threat to the MCU. With his otherworldly abilities and sinister presence, his potential return could open up new storylines, exploring the depths of the mystical side, and further challenging the hero's abilities to combat supernatural threats. We've got another villain like him whose potential has been wasted, MODOK. Here's a villain who left us wanting more. MODOK made a memorable appearance in Ant-Man, but his fate was sealed too soon. Fans were captivated by his unique design and sinister demeanor, and were disappointed to see him meet his demise in the film. His appearance was a refreshing departure from the typical MCU villain. His scientific genius and megalomaniacal ambitions made him a formidable adversary for Ant-Man and his allies. Fans were intrigued by his backstory, his motivations, and his potential for future storylines. With the MCU's penchant for unexpected twists, alternate realities, and resurrections, the villain could potentially make a comeback. His advanced technological abilities and connections to AIM could be explored further, and his rivalry with Ant-Man and other Marvel heroes could be revisited in future films or even Disney Plus series. Now, moving on, I tell you, I've saved the best for last. Ronan the Accuser. Man, Ronan the Accuser in the MCU was a missed opportunity. You know, he's supposed to be this imposing and terrifying villain, but in Guardians of the Galaxy, he gets taken down by a dance-off. Can you believe that? A dance-off. A Redditor also expressed their disappointment about the character's lack of a backstory or scenes to showcase his true potential. He was hyped up as this major villain, but he never lived up to that hype. It's frustrating when you see a character with so much potential not being given the spotlight they deserve. He could have been much more powerful than Thanos as an enemy, but they didn't get into that. There was potential for them to fight it out over Gauntlet, which would have complicated the Infinity War storyline, or they could have explored his religious beliefs to show diverse cultures within the MCU too. And that's all on the amazing MCU villains that were killed off too soon.